Welcome to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, where we sit down with the people who give shape, texture, and voice to life on the North Fork of Long Island. Some are rooted here by generations, others arrive by chance or choice, but all carry with them a piece of the story. We talk about what's changing, what's worth holding on to, and the currents of history, both quiet and loud, that run through this place. I'm your host, Christopher Bianchi, and for episode 135, we sit down with Tijuana Fulford, founder and executive director of the Butterfly Effect Project. Growing up in Riverhead, Tijuana was shaped by the people and experiences that instilled in her a deep commitment to community. That passion led her to create the Butterfly Effect Project, a youth empowerment organization that began with just a small group of girls and has since grown into a thriving network across Suffolk County. Tijuana walks us through BEP's evolution from its grassroots beginnings to the recent opening of its facility in Jamesport. Along the way, she shares the values at the heart of her work, the challenges she's faced, including funding cuts and racist attacks, and the resilience that keeps her going. We also discuss her new book, My Fabricated Truth, The Time I Was Daddy's Little Girl, and how her personal story intersects with the mission of BEP. We also discussed the future plans of the organization on the North Fork of Long Island. This conversation is about hope, healing, and the transformative power showing up for the next generation. So I hope you enjoy episode 135 with Tijuana Fulford. This episode was recorded June 24th, 2025. Thank you so much for coming on the Floyd Memorial Library podcast today. I'm really looking forward to talking to you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Definitely. And so in the beginning, I usually like to start off with if you can just give a little background about yourself, where you were born and raised.
So I was born right here. Well, actually, on Long Island, I was born in Central Islip, and we lived in Wyandanch and Bayshore for a while, and then we moved to Riverside on Lake Avenue, 87 Lake Avenue, to be exact. I moved here when I was about 3, and I started, my adolescence at elementary school at Phillips Avenue, and graduated from Riverhead High School and continued to do work. Mm-hmm. Riverhead is like my center, it's my heart. So even though I no longer live in the town of Riverhead, I do everything in Riverhead. It's really the beginning for me.
Yes. And so if you could talk about even possibly what your parents did and what maybe brought them out to...
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad actually worked on Anderson's farm for years before retiring from Suffolk Precast out in Calverton as a yard driver.
Okay. And could you talk a little bit about your time growing up in Riverhead and what that was like and what maybe activities you might do as a child?
So it's an interesting period for me. For when I was home with my family, I did what all kids did. We ran outside, we played games. We used to ride bikes. We were very much outside kids. But I also had the privilege of having a mentor. And Justine Wells is from Accobock. She owned property on Phillips Lane. So when I was with her, we would yard sale. We would make like Jello and all different type of like Jello souffles, bake, learn a lot about history, a lot of refurbishing furniture, graveyard drawings, like just a lot of different artistic, historic things that I did with her, which kind of like rolled over and kind of shaped into what I would later be interested in as a teen or as an adult.
Mm. And even going through high school, how was that experience through school? Were you interested in any particular subject matter at that time?
High school was hard. It is like high school to me is like going literally it's where you go to sink or swim, you know? And in high school, I was drawn to history, social studies. I love social studies. I love the idea of reading more challenging material, like in English class. And, you know, and I look back, I'm very grateful to the idea of reading certain books. Because when I started to really get into reading, I was focusing on one type of a book. And then as high school kind of opened your eyes to all these different writers from like John Steinbeck, you know, and just different stories that you would never hear. I did step and drill in high school. And that really, I think that was like my pivotal moment. Is where I found my voice, where I found like my pack, I guess you would call it, what I cared about. I cared about, you know, the synchronized noises and sounds that one can make and the meaning behind that. And I feel like when I think about high school, I just kind of feel like me finally for the first time starting to figure out what my voice was, what it sounded like, and then spending years trying to hone that voice and kind of really be authentic to my voice.
And even coming out of high school, did you know exactly what you wanted to do then, or it was kind of...
No, I came out of high school with the idea that I just wanted to be done with school, and I really didn't have any which way or direction I really wanted to go. I remember when I was younger, I wanted, like all kids, we want to be a teacher, and specifically a social studies teacher because I really enjoy history. And then from there, I ended up, you know, working with the differently abled at Eastern Disabilities, and like really enjoying that career and that job. And that's when I realized I really loved people. I really loved being a voice for people and making sure all people were created and treated equally. I didn't have a path, if that makes sense. I did medical, and I loved medical. And then I decided, like, you know what? I love medical so much. I want to go back to school and become a midwife. And as I did medical and was plunging through that, I realized really quickly, I don't want to do that. and that's what I started instead, managing doctor's offices. And I enjoyed that career because it allowed me to be hands-on with people. It allowed me to learn from people and learn about different, you know, things that were happening in our community, and just also learn about insurances, ailments. And I was able to still be educated but also helping people. So I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed developing people into being their better selves or the best versions of their selves. But even then, at that point, it wasn't enough, and I was like, you know, called into the butterfly arena. And then that was, you know, that landed me here.
Yes. And just before we get into the Butterfly Effect Project, I was just curious, were you interested in staying in the Riverhead area? You know, like some people coming out of high school, they might want to go away and then possibly come back later. But did you feel like you wanted to stay in the area?
If I'm being honest, I feel like I had to stay. I come from a pretty large family, and we were very impoverished. And at the time, my dad was addicted to crack cocaine. My mom, like I said, she was a stay-at-home mom. She suffers from dyslexia. And so she relied heavily on me to do a lot of things. And so, like, for me, getting out of school was not like this overwhelming, exciting period like most kids have and have the opportunity. For me, it just was thrusting myself into the workforce so I can do whatever I need to do to take care of my family. And at the time, my family consisted of siblings and a mom and a dad.
Yes. And then I'm just curious, I guess we can get into the Butterfly Effect Project, but could you talk a little bit about how that started and what inspired you to focus on youth empowerment?
That is one of those questions that it sounds like an easy, straightforward answer, but it's a couple moving parts. So I think for me, it was, I would say, three components that started the Butterfly Effect Project. The first one is, like I said, I grew up very impoverished. And I did get the opportunity of being a Girl Scout, and I was super excited to be a Girl Scout. The issue was, I don't think the Girl Scout at the time was set up to understand and fully embrace girls who looked like me and came from my background. So it was very challenging for them, which made it very challenging for me. They didn't understand that I walked, that 37-minute walk proudly to be a Girl Scout and to get there and to be made to feel like I had, I smelled, or I didn't have my dues, and not understanding, they didn't understand that, just me getting there was work. And I was only 10. And so I did not have the kumbaya experience that, I should have had. I didn't have that sisterhood. And it kind of left like this bitter moment in memory in my youth for me. It also made me feel very inferior to other girls, because these girls were girls I went to school with. So they seen and they heard things about me that they then took to the school and shared with their friends, and then I became almost like a laughing stock. So it made me shrink. And so when I left Girl Scouts, I left believing that I did not belong there. But I had dreamed too big. Like girls like me can't be a Girl Scout. And if I'm being honest, I was content and okay with that. I understood that. Like, it's not for everyone. Fast forward, I, met Justine Wells, who I've hailed and I will continue to hail as really be like a pivotal life change for me. Like, just someone who showed up where it mattered and took the time out to really get to know me, get to see me, and to teach me things and to hear what I have to say. And she was a part of my life until I was about 33, until the time of her death. And that was something like having her there, and even thanking her in moments where she would always be like, it's not, no thanks necessary, or don't worry about it, or she would brush it off. It always felt like I wanted her to know that she did more than she could ever even begin to think. And then I had my own daughter, and I put her in Girl Scouts. And this time I'm going to get it right. This time I know what I have to do. Like, I know where she needs. I'm going to make sure she has it. And I did that. And she was thriving. But then I was planning my wedding, and she missed a few meetings. So at badge ceremony night, I remember her getting a badge for something that I did pay for her to go on this field trip, but she didn't go because I totally forgot about it. And I went to the troop leader and said, hey, Lexi didn't earn this badge. She wasn't there. And she said, it's okay. You paid for it. You paid for it, changed my life. That statement changed my life. It almost like it opened up Pandora's box, and like a flood of emotion came, and I became very angry. And I tried to have these conversations with the troop leader, who was awesome, but she wasn't understanding that, just because I had the money to pay for a trip doesn't mean that my daughter's entitled to get this badge. She didn't earn it. I mean, and what are we saying to the other kids that can't afford it? That means they don't have access to it, right? That means that these kids can never have the opportunity to earn a badge because their parents don't have the money to send them on this trip. And that just stuck with me. And I remember like going to Miss Wells about it. I remember even going to the Girl Scouts itself about it. And the Girl Scouts pretty much said, like, this is how they do business, and I don't have to accept the badge. And that didn't sit right with me. And when I went to Miss Wells all fired up, I remember her telling me to create your own group then. I'm like, I'm going to create my own group. And I did. I had no idea what I was doing. I remember writing down my thoughts and sending them back and forth over to her, and her telling me what she thought. And she'd be like, oh, that group already exists. Oh, that idea is already out there. And it was like frustrating. And then finally I sent her something, and I remember her saying, like, you're on to something with this one. This is different. And, I then once I got that, I had to figure out, like, what am I going to name my group? And trying to find a name that's empowering, that's changing. And I remember going to sleep, I'm a huge tea drinker. So going to sleep after, having a cup of tea, like thinking about it, and waking up in the middle of the night, and it just popped in my mind, like the Butterfly Effect Project. And I knew that was a movie. So I'm like, I don't know if I can use that. So I remember waking up my husband, and he's like, Tia, go back to sleep. And so I couldn't wait till the next morning. At the time, I called my best friend, Tanya Miles at the time. And I remember telling her, like, hey, I have an idea. And I tell her about it. I tell her the name and she starts cracking up on the phone. She's like, introducing the Butterfly Effect Project. She's like, and she's hysterical. She's like, the name sounds funny. And then I explained the name and why I chose that name. And it was so funny because I didn't know why I chose that name at the time. It would just popped in my head. But the minute I had to tell her the meaning of the name, it just became so clear. Like, and there's so many different names. It's the Butterfly Effect Project. So like, I can do one small thing over here and then have a ripple effect in someone's life. You know, I said that's one way of looking at it. Or you can look at it, we see all these incredible, beautiful butterflies, but we've never seen two butterflies that look exactly the same. They're like perfectly imperfect creatures that have a job to do and they're content in their job. The average butterfly lives about 53 days. That's the longest they'll live, is about 53 days. And in that time period, they go through they do and they distribute such prolific things in our community. They're like beautiful beings, you know, and they have so many different meanings, mythical or not. And when you see one, it leaves you in awe. And I'm thinking, what if we treated our young people like that? What if when we seen our young men and our young women specifically, that we revered them as a butterfly. We treated them and gave them grace and stopped for a moment and took them all in. Like, how many people see a butterfly and for a second they just stop and they acknowledge like, that's a monarch butterfly. That's a beautiful white butterfly. That's a skipper butterfly. There are so many people that do that. Imagine if we did that with youth. Like, imagine if we just stopped for a second and really just took that young lady all the way in and seen her for who she was and allowed her to be who she was destined to be. Like, what happened if we just all did that? And hence the name.
And then from there, just getting, how did it form from getting a building and then it's starting out small to growing to what it is today? So
we started out with 8 girls, and we just put out flyers, free program. We started out in the Riverhead free library, and I was very intentional with everything that I did with the program. The program is born out of all of my challenges, all of my wins and losses, all of my laughs and lash outs. So I wanted to put the program right back at the Riverhead Free Library. That's where we started. That's where my hurt first started for programming, right? And then I wanted to make the program on a Wednesday night because that was my thank you, my universal thank you to Justine Wells, because we originally started meeting on Wednesdays. We started with 8 girls the first year in 2014. And by the end of 2014, we had 34 girls enrolled in the program. We had no idea what we were doing. Like, the women that signed up to come on board with the program, they just looked to me to like, okay, Tia, like, what do you need? And like, I just made sure that everyone and all the volunteers in the program understood that they were just as important. Like, they're not here to take garbage bags out. They're not here to take pictures. They are here to become a reason, become the reason. Like, when someone goes back into their minds and say, how did I get here? I want each volunteer to know they played an integral part. So by our second year, we had opened up another chapter in Bellport, which is our second oldest chapter, which brought our number to about 86 girls. Once we hit our third year, the pull started coming for me to leave my job. And I was working at a Dr. Sussman's office at the time, in Middle Country Endocrinology, and phenomenal doctor. But I knew that it was something that was bigger, that was out there. And the more I tried to ignore it, I started having physical symptoms at my job where I was getting sick, I was collapsing, and I didn't understand what was happening. I would get to the hospital and everything would be great. I would go to work the next day and I felt crappy. And so I had the opportunity after a conversation with my husband to step away from my full-time job, and he gave me 1 year to see like if this is something that I can really make a living with, and more importantly to change lives. And in that 1 year, we went from having I think it was like 120 something girls to like 284. Wow. And then it just started growing from there, and it was hard. People often talk about how great the program is, but then no one wants to talk about like the sacrifices that was made, for the program. And it was a lot of sacrifices because I didn't have connections. I didn't know anyone. I wasn't from a nonprofit world. And although I had lived in the area, I live in a very impoverished area. So we did what all impoverished people do. We just figure it out and we make it happen. So, I started cleaning bathrooms on the side, and cleaning toilets and mopping floors to make extra money so I can, have programming for the youth. I had to buy things that they needed, and this is how you need it. There were times I didn't pay any of my house bills, and there were times that I went home and my lights didn't switch on because I made somebody else's light bill. And my husband, and I'm so grateful for him, like he just worked. And I remember and working from 5 to, leaving the house at 5 o'clock so he can go cut grass and then be to work at 7, leaving his job to go cut grass because he's a landscaper as just like a side job, until like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and then driving out to Montauk so he can do bouncing overnight just to help fund the program. Like a lot, this was not just a Tia thing. This was our whole household sacrifice, Christmases, Thanksgivings, birthdays, all so someone else can have, because they knew that we were doing something bigger. And we knew that eventually one day, whatever it is that we're doing, like it would just work out. And not financially. It was weird. We were never looking for the financial workout, just more like the wins. Like I knew that young people needed some wins. And if it meant that I would lose in certain parts of my life, I was okay with it because I love my children. I love my husband. They know they come from love. And we figured it out. So there were a lot of times we didn't have the elaborate things and the newest of the new, but they were, and they are still okay with that, because we know that because of what we're doing, so many people are getting out, they're branching out, they're being better, they're having opportunities. And I think that's so important, especially right now.
Mm-hmm. And even just, I think you've touched on that with some of the early challenges early on, but then continuing to overcome them. But for BEP, the focus is on empowering young girls and boys. What are some of the most important skills or values you hope to instill in the youth you work with?
Healthy relationships. That's really important. We see a lot of, especially now, we see a lot of our young people involved in relationships, whether they're with their families, whether they're girlfriend, boyfriend, whether they're friends. These relationships cause grief. Relationships cause hurt, anguish. They deter our youth, bullying. I feel like setting some boundaries, like what's healthy for you, like what can you handle, what do you want to handle, what's your worth, like, and setting those young people up for success. Courageous conversations, and confidence building is a big one. It is really hard to advocate for yourself. It's people, they say it with ease, like, oh, we're building confidence, but confidence is not just looking nice. It's feeling nice. It's feeling valued. It's feeling the need to not explain yourself. It's feeling it's coming to understand that no is the sentence. That's it. Having the confidence to know who you are and what you bring to the table is so mind-blowing. And there's so many self-help books right now that a lot of millennials like myself are constantly reading, and we're all buying these books, right? Because we didn't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. Like we didn't know how to tell someone like, no thank you, and that's it. I look at it like, you're having a conversation with your boss, and your boss asks you to stay later, and they asked you to stay. They didn't tell you to. They didn't mandate you to. And some people will believe like, I have to stay later, or they'll stay later and they'll be really upset with their boss for making them stay later. But the truth is, you could have just said no. Mm-hmm. I can't. Thank you. It's in teaching our young people how to be respectful in that manner. Holding confidence, holding space is really important. Civic engagement is something I would teach. You belong here. And if there's I'd look at the young people as plants, right? So if you don't plant your roots, right, then unfortunately you will die. You will feel severed. You will be lost. You'll be disconnected. You have to be involved. And I say you have to be a part to be a part. So making sure they understand civil engagement, understanding who they are, where they are, why is it like that, ask the questions, show up, be involved, get out there, visit your local libraries, your local museums. Like, stop acting like that, everyone's against you. Like, kind of like take the shackles off your brain and just get out there. And I think our last thing, and it's funny because I have a curriculum that we follow and it just like out of my head. And so I do apologize for that. So if you give me a second, I'm just running through my curriculum in my head. But we also took, like, again, environmental studies. And when I say environmental studies, I'm talking about everything from gardening to politics. These are all like environmental things and how they shape our lives. They shape our lived experiences. And they allow us to either open doors or close doors. So, just making sure that our young people have a hold on the fundamental thing that's around them and that they remember to always not just give back, but pull up. Those are really important. And those are things that we're teaching our young people.
And do you think, like, even looking back at you as a child and then thinking of the youth today, do you think you're filling in like a gap that wasn't there, that was a support? And whether we can also look at the school systems and what they can provide, or the bare minimum, but was that something important to you as well? Just because it definitely seems like it's providing a space for the youth and children to come to when you still see limitations throughout society.
Yes, we are definitely filling a gap. And the gap that we're filling is becoming, unfortunately, larger and larger by the day, especially right now. And when I look back on school, there are things that stood out to me. Like, I knew that I was smart. And I knew that, I was really good at things, but there was no one there to bridge those gaps for me. There was no one there to help me understand what that looked like, how I can use my education as a way to move forward. When you're in certain schools and and again, I'm speaking at that time period, it seems like the minority kids are always ushered into like CNA, cosmetology, barbering, and we are more than hairstylists and, nursing assistants, right? And so for me, I've seen a lot of my classmates go into those directions. And when I see them now, like arthritis from like lifting the bodies and stuff like that, carpal tunnel for doing the hair. And it's like, like what if someone would have told us that, you love doing hair, but you can also own your own salon, or, you can, create a product for selling, like entrepreneurship. Like those are things that we weren't given access to. And a lot of schools don't realize that your top 2%, right, are always your top 2%. They're the top 2 in kindergarten. They're the top 2 in elementary. So your focus is they're giving so much more opportunities because they're the top 2. It doesn't take away from their skills and their talents and their smarts. They're incredibly smart. But it does have to show light that, the opportunity they're giving because of those things. And what about your kids that are getting 80s and 85s? What about them? Or what about your kids that are getting 70s and 75s? What about them? Every child has a voice and a story. And it's really important, I think, that schools really start thinking about, are they really shining a light on everyone's voice or only that top 2? We work in a lot of school districts, and we see we get the phone calls from the parents. We get the phone calls like, oh my God, you're here. I want my child in your program. And it's been really exciting and helpful. The schools that we are in, when, they allow us a true partnership, and we are able to come in and bring in some of our services for the youth and their families. And sometimes, the families are in the wrong and they just need to hear it from a different person. And sometimes we're the buffer to kind of like, hey, such and such has not been doing their homework. So therefore they don't deserve to go on this field trip. But more importantly, like maybe instead of focusing on the field trip, we should focus on why the homework is not being done. So bringing in those extra services where there's no judgment, where there's a community of people who understands their needs, who resembles their, not just their cultural experiences, but their lived experiences. So I believe that, trying really hard for me to remember what and how I was failed in school, how my family was failed in school, and how we failed at school allows me to be more open-minded while working and collaborating with the schools and ensuring that we are both working with the same goal, and that is to uplift and empower the community one child at a time.
Mm-hmm. And could you talk about even some of the, or if you could talk about some stories or initiatives that you've had? Even I saw that you had a field trip to New Orleans, and just even some of those projects and how they came.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have 31 chapters. And in our 31 chapters across the east end of Long Island, we have what we call arts programming. And one of our arts programming chapters is called BAG, Butterfly Action Group. It was started in 2020 by Butterfly. All of our programs are created by the youth. Everything is youth-led. And this is during the whole COVID / Black Lives Matter movement. And it was a lot of political divide. It was a lot of racial divide at that time. And, people trying to figure out what to do, how to do it. And she, at the time, was going to Riverhead High School, and she just did not like what she was seeing. She felt like, her voice wasn't being heard, and she was getting really worked up and was posting. A few postings was starting to trigger her to respond, and I said, we don't respond. We don't react, we respond. And that's the first thing I teach anybody. I'm not a natural reactor. That's an emotional based feeling. I am a responder. That's a logical based feeling, right? A logical based result. And she created Butterfly Action Group as a way to have courageous conversations, with one community at a time. So once we started learning what our community needed, what our youth wanted, and what was happening, the question came up of why. And our school system does not teach the history in a way where it's, I don't want to say truthful, but I want to say accurate, or I want to say the time is not spent on it properly. So the understanding. So we know these things happen. The kids are aware, but they don't know the reasons of why it happened. Why were there slaves in the first place? What is that reason? Why was Savannah, this beautiful, beautiful, place in, Georgia, Savannah? Why exactly was Savannah created? What's the significance of that in history? And I think those are really important for people to know that, and we don't learn that. So I decided to take the BAG kids on a trip in the South to learn about history at its rawest, and then take what you learned down South and apply it to today. And we went to Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and Georgia. And I have to tell you, that trip changed every person's life. We learned a lot of ugly and truths, and then we learned some truths that shocked us all. We learned about allies, and we learned about supporters. We learned about Lake Lanier, which is a beautiful man-made lake in Georgia. And a story that I would like to share specifically is while in Georgia, doing the research for Lake Lanier, this was on a Netflix series that we watched, and the kids were very intrigued by it. So we went to the library. This library was incredible. I mean, MacBooks everywhere. You walked in, it was an elevator outside that took you to where you had to be. It was just phenomenal. Everyone was so nice up until we asked about Lake Lanier, and they're like, oh my God, it's so beautiful there. Here's some stories. And then I'm like, but I want to know about the town that was underneath Lake Lanier. that town. I want to know more about that town. And immediately we were asked to leave. In 2024, I believe, this happened. Yeah, me and a group of youth was essentially kicked out of a library. A security guard was called on us because we wanted to know about a town. And in the area where they had like the town information, and I do apologize, I cannot think of a town off the top of my head. There was nothing there. It was like an empty shelf. So we left, and we go to Lake Lanier itself because we want to experience it. We bring roses, and we take our feet off and we kind of stand in the water. And the reason why that is so significant, and it was so significant to the youth, is because here's Lake Lanier, this beautiful man-made lake that is covering up a Black community that they flooded out because a body was found, out on the outskirts of it. And they assumed that someone from inside that community, must have, killed and raped this young woman. And so they pretty much raped the community, and killed multitudes of people and told everyone else, pretty much, if you're still living here, by this date, we're going to kill you. So everyone left and they went to this new town, Gwinnett County. Gwinnett County. And the funniest thing about this town is the town underneath Lake Lanier. And again, I apologize for not giving you like the names, but it just lost me. But the town was all like chicken croppers, and they raised chickens, like healthy chickens. So all these chicken croppers and chicken farmers are now over at Gwinnett County, and they're kind of like, looking for jobs. But there's these two brothers over there who are struggling chicken farmers, right? And you're like, who are the two brothers? They're Purdue brothers. So these Black guys who just lost everything are now working with the Purdue brothers, and they're building up this chicken farm. And now, when you think about the Purdue brothers, well, we already know that story. We eat their chicken all the time. Mm-hmm. But see, those are like historical things that, that it's important to know. It's important to know what happened, not to be angry, but to ensure those things never happen again. Mm-hmm. Like the history is not here to, shame us. It's there to help us, to teach us, right? As a guide. So that's one of my things that I enjoy is the bag route. We also have our intergenerational garden, and that's there to teach us, again, like the land, like, at farm to table 101, and just not just farm to table, but that intergenerational conversation. In our garden, you can see a 6-month-old to a 6-year-old, and they're all learning how to come together to create a harvest. And again, all youth-led. There are adults there. The volunteers there are phenomenal. The master gardeners, incredible. And they're not just learning about like how to grow, but they're learning about how to nourish something outside of yourself, how to sacrifice, how to make sure this living organism, right, thrives, and how if we take care of it, it in turn will take care of us. So those are some of the ones I love. Obviously, my favorite one would be the college access and college retention program. And the names just tell you exactly what it is. Like, our college tours, having help with FAFSA, these workshops, and not like these Zoom workshops, but having a designated person that you can come inside and say, I need help fill out this application, and having a real life person sitting with you doing that. Making sure our girls are not just graduating and going off to college, but they have a support that they need to stay in college to get that ultimate certification or, degree. And those are the things that we're teaching our girls, like to follow up and follow through. Don't be ashamed or to ask for help. Do what you have to do now so you don't have to do it later. When it comes to the program, it morphs every year based on the kids and the needs that we interact with. So every year we're bringing on something different. We're bringing on something new. And the goal is to make sure that every girl and guy now in the program is seen, heard, validated, and appreciated, regardless of where you come from, the color of your skin, your economic status. Like, our job as adults is to make sure as a youth, you don't have to worry about that. And that is my most proudest thing of the butterfly.
Yes. And you've also mentioned that you've continued to create a strong network of chapters across Suffolk County. How has the community responded to BEP, and what role do local organizations and schools play in your success?
The community has been phenomenal. if I'm being honest. They've always been accepting. They want to know more. In every batch of apples, there's always a few bad ones, right? Some of the myths about BEP is that, it was a black girl program. And I always say to people, I happen to be black, and surprise, that's out there, right? But just because I'm black, it doesn't mean I only see only black girls. In the beginning, the girls that started the program all essentially came from the Flanders area, which at the time was predominantly a black area. So we've always had a diverse group of volunteers. We've always had, other ethnicities in our program. It's just that people look for certain girls. So if you look for it, you'll see it. And I believe that for the most part, the community has been super educated about that and understood that. And looking, when they actually come into our program, they see the diversity in our program. I believe that local communities have played a part because they're honest. Local organizations are honest. They know what they need. They know that, these kids can use assistance, and they reach out to us. And, I don't believe I'd be where I was today if it wasn't for the support of the community, of a local community. And which is why anytime I can help, I try to help, everyone, because everyone needs assistance, and everyone has to learn how to, as you move up to the next level, you need to bring someone up with you. There are some programs, if I'm being honest, that did not want to see the butterflies when did not even want the butterflies to be this close out on the North Fork. But the community has spoken, and they are supportive, and we're grateful to the community. Anything that we can do to be of assistance, to be a part, and to kind of show the community that we are part of their fabric, we try really hard to do, because we have girls from these communities. And if we can't teach the girls what a collaborator look like, then who's going to? And it's the safe space that we're creating. We don't want to just create those safe spaces behind, the butterfly walls. We want them to be everywhere. And I tell people, when you hear the word safe space, the big misconception is people assume that it's an actual location. It's not. It's a person. It's a person with a warm smile and a big heart that tells some child, hey, come in here. And mean that. That's the safe space. So I guess when you say what role do the community play, and who have been a part, each and every person who have said a kind word, did a kind gesture, shared a post, supported in any way, they have played a part of the success of the program. And I think the program, to me, I look at it, it used to be a flame, and now it's like a fire. It's spreading, and that's because of the community.
And were you even surprised, because you mentioned initially getting stretched thin, and having to really take time out of your personal life to work on the organization, but were you surprised to see the amount of people, even volunteers, and that felt like they wanted to get involved and really help the organization?
Yes, always. I still am very surprised. For so many years, I have carried this organization on my back, and with the support of a select few and my family, my husband and children, to see so many people give me that backpack. I want to carry my turn. It's been, there's really no words, if I'm being honest. I'm still processing it. It's something that's new, and something that for the first time in a long time, I can share the weight, I can share the load, and there's really no words to describe the appreciation of it. When people tell me how great the program is and what they want to do to help, and then they actually help, no strings attached, it changes the perception I have, of people. It changes. In that moment, they don't know that I'm still this broken butterfly that in that moment they're fixing. And I'm forever grateful. I'm just forever grateful, because my biggest fear is what happens when I'm gone. I don't want this to go. This is not the Tia show. This is the Butterfly Effect Project, and any and everyone has a Miss Tia inside of them. And, when someone steps up, it shows. I see it. And, I joke, I laugh a lot. But the truth of the matter is I'm hiding the jokes, the laughs, the silly words behind a heart that is beating so much pride and love and appreciation. I just don't know how to express it. So I just express it by showing you that, I'm going to continue doing everything in my power to make sure the butterfly thrives. And that's, I guess, my way of saying to the masses, thank you so much for everything.
Yes. And also, just looking in 2024, BEP opened its own facility in Jamesport. What does that milestone mean for you and the organization?
Wow. So I have to tell this story if you don't mind, and I'll be super brief, but I don't believe in coincidences. And every time something in BEP world is about to be a shift, some weird story unfolds, like something weird that changes. And it's so funny because I can literally remember every time a shift happened, how that person entered our life. I can remember the exact day, time, what was said. And this is just one of those moments. So when I met this phenomenal couple, they kind of were just around, and they came in and they were introduced by another phenomenal person, right? That's a whole other story. But they came in and, we're talking, and I remember the guy said to me, hey, like, what would you like, money or bills? And I think I joked and kind of was like, I'll take them both or whatever. But then I really thought about it. And for the first time, I think that I was really exhausted. He had no idea how exhausted I was. And I allowed myself to do something that I don't like doing, and that's dream. I don't like dreaming because they're deferred plans, and I don't want to have a deferred plan. I want to have an actionable item, right? Like a goal. And he said, what would the building be like? If you can have any building you want, what that building be like? And I remember like closing my eyes like a 7-year-old, thinking about this perfect building and describing it to him. And he's like, okay, great, thanks. And I went to give him a hug at the end, and he made it very clear that at the time, and I was at the time, he was not a hugger, he was a handshaker. And him and his wife, they left. They came back for a few other things, but they left. And I didn't hear from him. I didn't think anything about it. And then 3 weeks later, I got an email that kind of said, hey, are you getting any of my texts or whatever? And I'm like, no. And he said, I want you to come look at this building. And he said he had a couple buildings he wanted me to look at. I'm like, okay. So we come to this building in Jamesport, and that's a whole nother story about the building. But we get to this building, and I'm looking at it. He's showing me the building. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this building, like, I'm like creating where each room is going to be in my head as I'm walking through the building. And then after the building, we go to the barn. Then after the barn, we go to the potato barn. After the potato barn, we go to the garage. After that, we go downstairs of the barn. So I'm like, this is massive. This is a campus. So he's like, don't get excited. Don't get excited. And I'm like, okay. So I go back and I'm thinking, it's such a great building. Like, I wish I really like that building. And a week or two go by, and he calls me and he says, hey, you can get excited now. I'm going to put an offer on the building. And I had to just sit with that. It happened so fast. Him and his wife were so involved in making sure that I was involved in every aspect of the building. It really was a true gift of the heart. Like, a lot of people think that he owned the building, he gave it to us. No, he went out, allowed me to dream, found the building that fit my dream, and then purchased it. And that donation changed the game. Like, it allowed me to, for the first time, not just be an executive director of an organization in the basement, right? People can see me. They can see what I'm doing. And this is the butterfly standing, showing you this is what we can do, and spreading our wings boldly and loudly, and again, being grateful and thankful for all those opportunities that we had along the way, from First Baptist Church to Jill Stroder, like people who gave us housing when we were at a time of, growth. But now we're at a place that we not only have housing, but we can continue to grow. And just so grateful. Now, owning a building it's incredible, but it does come with some challenges, right? So we have to do some renovations, which people, the community will, as they ride by, will see new things, emerging. And, we have to adapt to the idea of being, owners of property. And we take that very serious. And one of the things I tell people is I want to be a really good neighbor. And I want the community to not just see us as a place where the kids hang out at, but a place where they can stop in at any time and interact with us and get to know us. And we're looking to, not just be, a place in the community, but be a part of the community.
Yes, definitely. And then you mentioned even more recently, has been more challenges, even whether funding cuts or racist attacks. But you've continued to push forward. What motivates you to keep moving forward towards your mission despite these obstacles?
What if Martin Luther King would have been like, this is too hard? Like what if Rosa Parks would have just got up and sat in the back of the bus? Like what if Ruby Bridges wouldn't have just went to school that day? Like, I don't have the liberty to not move forward. That's never a option for me. I don't know why I am tasked with the work that I do. But I just know that it has to be done. And if not me, then who's going to do it? I don't get to smile with these kids and tell them that they can count on me and they can trust me and I always have their back and I always do what's in their best interest. And as soon as something scary arises, I shrink and I run off. That's not a safe space. Like I have to live and breathe what I say to them. The kids, the youth, they're the ones who make me stronger. So when you say, why didn't I do, like why what I guess what motivates me, there is no motivation. Mm-hmm. There is no special secret. It has to be done. And that's just it. It has to be done.
Mm-hmm. And even just moving forward, there weren't any moments like, because even now you've come out with other like seminars on how to deal with situations like this, but is it almost like you acknowledge it but it's not like you're just ignoring it, but it's like moving forward, we're not going away and we'll continue to do what we need to do.
It was really important to me at that time to highlight what was happening. A lot of people go through similar things and they decide it's best to just, if we ignore it, it'll go away. Mm-hmm. I don't want it to be ignored. I need you to see what's happening in real life and in real time. I want to highlight that, but I also need you to know that the reason that we are being attacked is not for what we are not doing, but for what we are doing. Like we are changing lives. We are creating stories. We are changing the world one young person at a time. And for some people, that is scary. And for other people, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So it would be just bad business for me to show you the hate, but not show you the love. So we have a seminar coming up as we stand against hate on Thursday. And we're asking people to come out and to learn about it. And we're not going to focus on what happened, right? We want to focus on how do we prevent it from happening again and understanding the laws and how that applies to things of that nature. It is really important now more than ever to be informed and to be educated and to be aware and to be active in these decisions. When you think about a holiday such as Juneteenth, one of the things that sticks out in Juneteenth is not the fact that 200,000 plus slaves were still slaves. That's something, yes. But what sticks out to me is that 200,000 plus people were not made aware that they were no longer slaves. So they weren't true, they were in prison, but it wasn't almost like a shackle prison. It was more like they kept something from us. So we are in a place now, we no longer need to be purposely in the dark. Like, we are no longer forced to be in the dark. We're making that decision for ourselves. So we're choosing to be involved. So you have to be involved. You have to know, because if you don't know, then you will be in the dark. And you may be the person that's sitting back on that plantation, or because you didn't know what was going on. And that's kind of what we're moving forward. We're moving forward intentionally with love and light and education. And if you are hopping on this train, we are saying before you hop on it, this train is about love, light, and intention. Like, we want to educate, we want to empower, we want to ensure that everyone feels included. We believe in wholeheartedly diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We believe in those things. DEI is not a political statement. It's a real life situation. Like, how could you not be diverse? How could you not want inclusion? Like, the question is, how can you not? How can you not? So I started off trying to empower youth, but the truth is, in order to empower youth, in order to give youth guidance, in order to ensure that youth have what they need, we as a society have to stop and say what needs to be said, and then do what needs to be done, and do it with grace. Do it where in 100 years later, if somebody is telling my story, I can be okay knowing that everything I did with the best intentions. I did for the right reasons. I'm sitting on the right side of history. And sometimes sitting on the right side of history gets really lonely, and you have to go through some really challenging things. But what gives me peace of mind is because I'm always going to do what is right. And doing what is right may not always feel good. It may not always look good, but in the end, it will be for the good. And that's my moral compass.
Yes, definitely. And I think we've touched on this a bit, but just looking to the future, what's next for Butterfly Effect Project, and what's your vision for its growth and impact? I know you mentioned even when you were talking about the building and dreaming, but if you could talk a little bit about your future.
Yes. So Greenport is next. We have been asked to come to Greenport for about 2 or 3 years now, but we haven't really had any stable conversations around it. We want to have a chapter in our eastern towns and our eastern communities. So we are looking to come to Greenport, looking for deeper roots in Southold and in Mattituck. There are youth out here that can utilize our services, our network, and, just looking for a space to hold it. That's always the biggest hurdle, is finding that community space, or a space that the community will allow us to turn into a community space for them. So that's one of the things that we're looking to do, is to expand across the 2 North Forks. We are looking to sustain our organization, looking for programming and having a stronger financial backing, so that way we continue to grow and continue to empower and impact the lives of the youth. We are looking for ways to be more involved in the community, and not just like, a lot of people will reach out because they know that we have a lot of youth. So they'll reach out because they need to almost borrow our youth every day. Mm-hmm. And I try to tell people, like, that's not nice. That's not nice. You can't do that. You can't borrow our youth for the day. You cannot take a picture with the youth and act like they're yours. You have to be a part. Like, these are people. These are someone's children. And I'm a mama bear. So, like, I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Like, our kids are not for show. And so when I think about the future, I think about those barns. So the potato barn, I want to turn into a intergenerational lounge. So I want it to be a lounge for our seniors and adults during one part of the day, and for our youth and our teens during another part of the evening. I think that'd be really cool. And then have intergenerational moment. And I want it to be for a gaming system, like green rooms, green spaces, TVs, computers, we have like pool tables. So just like a really cool spot, like, and we wanted to call it the underground because it's partly underground. We want to turn the top into either green room space or not green rooms. Yeah. Greenhouse space, or maybe a dance studio. For the big barn that you guys do on the property, I'm giving you guys all of a tea right now as I drink tea. This is the first time I'm publicly speaking about this. We know what we don't want. That barn is beautiful. 2-story barn, upstairs, downstairs. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we really want, when you walk into that barn, to feel like you was in the barn and to keep the footprint of the barn. So we're not looking to have a venue for like weddings and things of that nature. Like, I said earlier, I want to be a good neighbor, and who wants a venue next to their house, right? We have enough of those. So we are looking to turn it into maybe some classroom space and like some community space, maybe for other nonprofits or community organizations that are looking to have like a whole space there. That's what we're looking for. And we're looking to turn like our garage maybe into, again, some classroom space for our incredible garden. And as the months roll by, you'll see us start having flags out there to be more inclusive. And again, our main thing is when you ride by, that when you look to the right or to the left of you, you always know that there's something happening and brewing there. And you might feel inclined to come in and see for yourself what it is.
Definitely. And I think that's important even with the North Fork and South Fork, even with opening a chapter out here in Greenport, because I think people can overlook the East End of Long Island and think everything's fine, but really it can be invisible and you don't know. But I think it's important.
I think it's really important. I remember a time a few years back, and we were coming out, and we were told by someone that pretty much like the reason they did not want us here is because they didn't have kids in their community that needed our services. And I remember saying to her, so you don't have any young women here that need to be empowered or uplifted? So you're telling me that there's not one person here that looks in the mirror and sees a flaw? And I knew at that moment we definitely need to be here, but we didn't have the capacity to come out. And I'll never forget that moment. And I hope if she's listening, she'll never forget it either. But we are definitely putting that on our way as we start to expand. Like, this is not about bringing stress or struggle to your community or highlighting what the community does not have or the lack thereof. This is about making sure that the young people in your community have every chance that they need and deserve to be the best version of themselves. And I think that alone is worth having the butterflies there.
Absolutely. And then you've also recently written a book titled My Fabricated Truth, The Time I Was Daddy's Little Girl. Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind that book?
Yeah, so I have I have actually a book series called My Fabricated Truth series. It's 5 books. And The Time I Was Daddy's Little Girl is the second of the installment. And it talks about the pressures of the teens today, the youth today, and finding out about like their sexuality, the LGBTQIA plus community, the pressures of being perfect, the pressures of being growing up in a household with 2 parents, the pressures of going to church and what that looks like, the stigma of, coming from success and how that must trickle down to the youth and what that looks like finding your own voice. And then it also talks about the pressures of being authentically you in a world where you're giving so many opportunities to be somebody other than yourself, even just for a moment. And what does that look like? And so my Fabricated Truth series are books that do not have an ending. They give you all the ingredients you need to make up your opinion and kind of lets you figure out with your book club, what would you do? The first book in the series is The Time the Mirror Deceived Me. And that's about, what does it look like to pass? And like when I say pass, meaning to be biracial and go as white. What does that mean? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What does it look like to be too woke? Like we all have that one friend that's just kind of like, and I always say they have your black card, my black card, and every other black card, they're toting it. Like what does that mean? How does history and knowing history play into who we are or who we are not today? It talks about the biases, like those microaggressions that we all, self-included, have against other people and stereotypes that we utilize when we need them and may not realize we're utilizing them. So the books are about these conversations that need to be had. And the inspiration from each book, the book series came about because my teens needed a way to express themselves and talk to their parents and talk to their families. And they needed to do it in a way where their parents can hear them. So if they if I wrote a novella and pulled all these different components and made a story and got the parents to read it, and then the parents are like so drawn in really quickly, they can have these conversations with their kids. The books were never meant to make me a millionaire, right? But they were definitely meant to get the conversation going. And so far, like, they've been really, really good. I just now finished up my third book. I don't have a title for it. And that book, I can tell you, is about abortions and the choices. And these books are just really hard conversations and really hard topics that play out live in our political world and on the stages. But what if we dug deep and kind of find out some more information about like abortions, gang violence, single parents, stigma, and all of these things. And again, like, these books do not have endings. These books create a narrative, create characters that are when you read the characters and you get to know them, they are not standalone characters. They're someone that you knew. You put your own name to them. And the hope is, after you read it, you will have a conversation with someone and you guys have a different perspective. It doesn't mean that you have to agree on it, but it's a different perspective.
Yes, definitely. I usually ask this question towards the end. I know you have many chapters all over the place, but it seems the headquarters is on the North Fork. I was curious, just in general, for the North Fork, what are your hopes for the future of the North Fork and its community?
We want to bring in more chapters that's catering to the North Fork. We do have a lot of programming. We have a line dance, if anybody's into like line dancing. We have a line dance class there every 2 weeks. We have yoga there, not yoga, Zumba, once a month. All the stuff is free. We have our LBL, our closet, our butterfly closet, which was created by one of the girls before her tenure. And so that's why it's LBL. And that's free. Like, essentially all the donations that we get in, they go out to our families, and whatever's left over, we create like a boutique, and the boutique is free. You come in and get what you want. We have free bagels every Monday afternoon and Tuesdays throughout the day. So we have a lot of things happening constantly all the time. We have our garden club, and we'll be having harvest soon, which again, that will be free. So specifically for the North Fork families in the community, there's so much that's going to be happening. For the 4th of July, we're going to be doing free hot dogs and lemonade, and the girls will be out there grilling and just giving out hot dogs and lemonade. So at any point, they can stop by and run programming. We always have our programming. You can follow us on our Facebook, the Butterfly Effect Project, or our website, bepgirls.org. And we literally have things that are going on just about every week, and it's for the community.
And then usually I just ask at the end if there were any other last minute things you'd like to discuss or say that we haven't touched on.
I feel like we talked on so much. I've drunk my whole cup of tea already. I guess I wanted to say thank you to yourself for inviting me here, for giving me a platform to speak openly and candidly. I definitely want to thank the community. They have been incredible. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that when everything was happening with the calls and the threats, the community came out in droves, and they showed up and they showed out. And it was nice to know that at a time where behind the scenes, I can tell you it was not the best. I was very paranoid because you don't know who's calling. Where is it coming from? Is it someone that's close to me? Is it someone that's not close to me? We were able to find out that the people did not live in Riverhead or in Jamesport. Even though some of the comments came from these areas, the threats did not. So that gave me a lot of closure, and it gave me the power to like just push through on days that were really challenging. And I'm excited. Like, this is a new opportunity, not just for the Butterfly Effect Project, but for the community to show people what love looks like, what unity looks like, what community looks like. And, we're just taking it all in and doing our part to be good neighbors, good people. Like, that's really what we are. We're just people trying to do the right thing at a time where sometimes doing the right thing is a challenge. And, we're up for the challenge. So I just want to say thank you again. And I look forward to seeing people. I'm going to be doing my best, making my rounds on the East End, on the North Fork specifically, to get to know the community and better and the landscape better. And I do want to give a shout out to the folks over at the North Fork Theater. They are incredible. They have lent their ears, the theater, and so many opportunities to the Butterfly Effect Project. And we're just astoundingly grateful for them. The girls and guys enjoy coming out here. So you will be seeing a lot of us this summer frequenting the shops and doing little mini TikToks in the stores and in the restaurants and eateries so we can start promoting where we are. So we're excited about that.
Awesome. No, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today and share your story and the story of the Butterfly Effect Project and really all the work you're doing and continue to do with providing support for the children and youth for our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed episode 135 with Tijuana Fulford. I want to thank you for listening to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, and we'll see you next time.